Hello, I'm Professor George Barnett, and I'm virtually here to talk about organizational communication and how the faculty here at UC Davis think about the subject. Let's begin by discussing the two terms communication and organization. Each of the faculty take a slightly different view of communication. What I want to talk about is how I view communication. It may differ from a lot of other people, but I think you should hear it. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged among two or more systems existing within a supersystem, which we call the environment, with the goal of reducing uncertainty in the future behavior of the interacting systems. Let's go through the key terms of this definition and clarify exactly what we mean by each one. Process. By process, we are referring to change over time. Communication is a dynamic process that takes place over time. Some scholars talk about the process of organizing, developing predictable patterns of communication, but others talk about how things change over time, such as attitudes and behaviors. The process of communication involves information, the second key term in our definition. According to Claude Shannon, who mathematically defined the term in the 1940s, information is that which reduces uncertainty. Information is the patterns in matter and energy that enable us to understand the past, explain phenomenon, and predict the future. Other communication scholars say that communication involves messages rather than information to which people attach meaning. I prefer the more abstract term for the reasons that will become obvious in this video. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged. The term exchange makes explicit that communication involves two or more equal participants in the process. That means that information must flow between the participants in both directions. Without this requirement, the process is not communication, but something else. Broadcasting, perhaps? Again, some scholars substitute the term transfer for exchange. A transfer is a one-way process of sending information from participant A, often called the source, to participant B, the receiver. This is probably appropriate when discussing the mass media because most of the information is sent from a broadcaster to the audience, with little, if any, being sent from the audience to the original source. What little that the broadcaster receives is called feedback. I should point out that the term communication has the same roots as the words common and community, which implies a sharing of a set of attributes. In our case, the sharing of information. So communication is a process by which information is exchanged among two or more systems. For now, let us simply say that systems are collections of interrelated components: people, animals, organizations, or computers, anything that can process information. Most communication faculty restrict their study to people and even call the field human communication. I prefer the more inclusive term so that we can include the study of all entities that can process information. Communication takes place in a context, a setting, or an environment, which affects what information is received, the information's relevance to the system, how it is interpreted, and the system's behavioral response to the information. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged among two or more systems that exist within an environment with a goal of reducing the uncertainty in the future behavior of the interacting systems. Information exchanges are purposeful or intentional, especially when we are considering social organizations. There are some people who say that you cannot not communicate, that communication need not be intentional. They especially talk about this when discussing nonverbal communication. My response is that without intent, it is not communication, but rather simply behavior. Communication is a specific type of behavior, one with the intent of reducing the uncertainty or to understand the ongoing behavior of the other system. This notion that communication is goal-related is especially important when examining the role in organizations. Okay, with communication defined, let's move on to define the second key term, organization. According to Daniel Katz and Robert Kahn, organizations are open systems that import energy and materials. Let me add data and information from the environment, transform these inputs into products or services or information that is characteristic of the system. They export these into the environment and re-energize the system from the energy sources found in the environment. Graphically, the critical term in Katz and Kahn's definition is system. Let's talk more about what systems are. A system is a set of components that interact, and together the whole produces some set of emergent properties. The components, be they machines or people or departments, are interdependent. They rely on one another. Together, as the whole, they make possible the production of goods and services that would otherwise not be possible. In other words, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Natural systems have four properties. 1. Wholeness. In systems theory, we focus on the whole, the organization, rather than the parts. That is, the individuals that make up the organization. 2. Self-regulation. The various components interact to constrain each other's behavior, which reduces the uncertainty in the other component's behavior and facilitates the coordination of their behavior to achieve the system's goals. 3. Adaptation. Systems adopt or adapt over time, changing due to the changing environment. Notice how the media companies have adapted to the changing business environment due to the internet, and other organizations like Apple's iTunes, Google's YouTube, and Amazon's Kindle. 4 is hierarchical embeddedness. Systems, organizations are composed of individuals embedded in organizational subsystems such as marketing, which is a component of the larger organizational system.